Um, so you've been invited to today's webinar to learn a little bit more about some upcoming federal level opportunities available to meat processors through the U.S. Department of Ag, including some general technical assistance, as well as a grant for meat processors that is expected to be announced in the next month or two. And we're really grateful to have Chris Roper with us, who is a lead on the USDA's new meat and poultry processing technical assistance programs, kind of a mouthful. And he's going to give us an overview of the new program and the types of technical assistance that is available to meat processors. And he's also going to help orient us towards the upcoming USDA grant opportunity for meat processors, with the very important caveat that we really don't know much about the particulars of that grant or application process at this time, because those details haven't been announced by USDA. But we do know that there are questions that folks can already be asking themselves, information they can already be gathering, and places that they can be going to get help refining elements of their project plan. So we've seen so far that a lot of grant application periods from USDA, recent USDA grants, those application periods have been pretty short, and the applications have been, in some cases, pretty involved and extensive. So now is a really good time to be putting on your thinking caps, gathering up information that's fairly standard for these types of grants, and putting together your grant team. So my hope for today's webinar is that when the USDA announces the new grant for meat processing in the next month or two, you'll all feel slightly better prepared to hit the ground running. So, and I would just like folks to know too, that in addition to the services available through Chris and the USDA's new meat and poultry processing technical assistance program, that staff at WSD Regional Markets are also here to support you and connect you with technical assistance and provide a variety of support, including grant related support. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Chris and let him further introduce himself. And just also wanted to invite you, if you have questions for Chris at any time, please put them in the chat during the presentation. So thanks so much. And Chris, take it away.
Thank you. And it's an honor to be with you all today. I appreciate you all joining us. We know that you all have probably worked all day. We wanted to catch as many people as we could that this information could benefit. So it was thought to do this later in the afternoon, maybe after you've gotten through the busy parts of your day. We can get you some information. And then again, if you need follow-up or want to have questions answered, or if you need one-on-one assistance, you will at least know after this webinar who to reach out to, where to get your questions answered, and where to maybe find more resources online that'll help you no matter what your project is. Some of the information that we will cover today will seem generic, maybe possibly for some of the grant programs, but some of the information that is offered through USDA is geared toward educational institutions, workforce training and development, small to medium-sized meat processing facilities. There's some intermediary lending opportunities that are still out there, and some more that will be coming in the future. So even no matter what field you're in, we will have a little bit of information for each and every one of you. And again, if you need or want to dive deeper into your projects, or no matter what you have going on, just please let us know. We work with lenders, colleges, community colleges, tech schools, meat and poultry processing. One thing that we would like to see more of is the more robust processing groups. We expect to see more on the seafood side as well, so which is obviously big in your area. So please make sure and ask the questions as we go along. We don't want to leave anybody out or leave a question unanswered today. So I'll start sharing some content with you, and we'll dive into our slideshow that we have developed. Shelby White is also on screen with me today, and she's helped develop all of these. Let's see. I get that. No. There we go. Okay, so again, my name is Chris Roper. I'm working with the Flower Hill Institute. We are a native-led nonprofit based out of Jemez Pueblo, New Mexico. Um, we have started working with USDA in March of this year. We're working to manage what we call the Meat and Poultry Processing Technical Assistance Program. And this was generated through USDA's commitment to a more resilient, diverse, and equitable meat and poultry processing system. This is intended to not just be bricks and mortar. We're trying to help build successful businesses. So USDA has committed to trying to have technical assistance providers that would assist you throughout the process, not just getting a grant or getting your building built or expanded or program started, but they want to help make sure that you are successful throughout the operations of your facility. We have a very diverse, qualified network of national technical assistance providers that we'll let you know about today. And as I mentioned, Flower Hill is a native-led non-for-profit organization selected to lead the technical assistance initiatives for these meat and poultry processing programs. And this is very important. We always have to qualify this for people when usually our first conversations, people are very skeptical about what we're doing, how we're doing it. We want you to know that our technical assistance is given at no cost and can be provided over the course of your project in support of your progress and development and success. Again, that's not just through the grant, that's through your development operations. We have a wide array of assistance that we can assist you with. The USDA's MEPTA, that's Meat Poultry Processing Technical, ensures that participants in USDA's Meat and Poultry Supply Chain Initiative have access to robust technical assistance to support the development success of their projects. Now, along this webinar, you're going to see different website addresses. We can share those with you through the chat, or you can get a copy of this slideshow after the presentation. The supply chain initiatives, including the MPIRG program, which was the Meat Poultry Inspection Readiness Grant that was administered through Ag Marketing Service, and the Meat and Poultry Processing Expansion Program, support the growth of domestic processing capacity and the ability of independent facilities to serve more customers in more markets. So it's all about increasing capacity in meat and poultry processing. So a lot of these grant initiatives, specifically the MPIRG program, which has now had 2 rounds of funding that have went through grant cycles and awarded. Last week, the second round of MPIRG grants were announced. So if you have applied for an MPIRG grant and you have not heard yet, please check the website. We have had a few MPIRG grant recipients that had some issues with their emails, and their grant award was pending because they had not received the email, or it might have been caught in their spam folder, and they had to log in and accept the grant. So just know that MPIRG round 2 grant awards were announced last week. There were 111 grant awards announced last week for MPIRG. So moving on to let you know who all is working on the technical assistance network here. We mentioned Flower Hill Institute Network, or MPAN. We have the Intertribal Ag Council. We have the American Association of Meat Processors, the American Meat Science Association, the Agricultural Utilization Research Institute, or ARI. We'll go through briefly what each one of these organizations, where they're at, what they're doing. Flower Hill is a native-owned, community-directed nonprofit. We serve as the overall technical assistance coordinator for the MPPTA program. We work closely with AMS. We are contracted to AMS as well as all of the TA providers. We want to connect meat and poultry processors, USDA grant applicants, and grant-funded project managers to the resources and expertise best suited to support a project's needs. And again, this can be the meat and poultry processors, lenders. This can be intermediary lenders. This can be training or workforce development institutions, colleges, community colleges, tech schools. We are working with all these different groups. To kind of meet the team here, Roger Farrar is our hub director. Roger actually spends a lot of time in the Northwest as well. He has a lot of work he does in Washington State, so some of you might have ran across Roger. Chris Roper, myself, spent a lot of time working with tribes and meat processing producers, training, workforce development programs. Dave Carter is based out of Colorado. Leslie Elgoods in New Mexico. Shelby White, who's on the call with us, is based in Oklahoma. Nicole Mast in New York, and Shondine Jones, our communication manager in New York. So if any of you are signed up for our technical assistance programs now through Flower Hill Institute, you would be receiving a newsletter and important updates that Shondine sends out each time we have important updates, or on a regularly scheduled monthly newsletter. To let you know a little bit about AMP. AMP is the American Association of Meat Processors. They are North America's largest meat trade organization. It is the mission of AMP to provide quality service, knowledge through education, regulatory representation, and networking opportunities for members. If you're a small processor, you're likely already a member of AMP. If you are a grant recipient of the MPIRG grant, or maybe one of the MPEP grants, or some of the future meat processing grants, you would be getting a membership with AMP as well. So these are some very important resources we want you all to know. And again, these websites, a lot of resources on these websites. Who's the American Meat Science Association? AMSA is a broad-reaching organization of individuals that discovers, develops, and disseminates its collective meat science knowledge to provide leadership, education, and professional development. Again, their website is there on the bottom. AMSA, they do a lot of training programs as well. They do a lot of youth development. They work with a lot of larger processors. They have some very good resources in the educational fields as well. Who is ARI? ARI is predominantly in the upper Midwest, but they are branching out a little more to help in this technical assistance program. The Agricultural Utilization Research Institute helps develop new uses for agricultural products through science and technology, partnering with businesses and entrepreneurs to bring ideas to reality. And ARI has meat labs in the upper Midwest. They are working on some byproduct utilization programs. They do a lot of research. They do a lot of product development, and they have some very strong teams that can help small businesses. So again, important names to remember and websites to jot down and keep track of. These folks are here to all assist you. The Intertribal Ag Council, they promote the Indian use of Indian resources for the benefit of Indian people. Programmatic offerings have expanded over nearly 4 decades to include legal and policy development, USDA technical assistance, natural resources management, domestic and international marketing support, and Native youth in food and agriculture leadership development. Very important in your state. IAC works with Indian tribes predominantly, or businesses and communities serving tribe members. So you don't necessarily have to be a tribal organization or tribal-oriented business to get assistance through IAC. If you are serving tribal communities or tribe members, you can also get assistance through IAC. Who is the Niche Meat Processor Assistance Network? They are just south of you all there in Oregon at Oregon State University. I know they have a big presence in your state and work with a lot of processors in Washington. They assist meat processors, producers, buyers, regulators, and others involved in the growing sector by coordinating, distributing, and developing information and resources to improve access to processing infrastructure and the long-term stability of the sector. Again, very important website, MPAN does a lot of training programs. They're actually getting ready to start a new training program right now. They do programs in starting up meat plants. They do a lot of different programs with planning, development. Again, very important website to keep track of. Some of the scopes of working in, and some of the groups have more specialties in other areas. So when we get a TA inquiry, we will sort through that to find out who the best is to support your need. So when we receive your TA request, we will review that and then assign that to the proper technical assistance provider that can best support you. And if at any time during that process, we need to shift and adjust or maybe bring in other technical assistance providers, we can do that as well. One of the scopes of work is federal funding and technical assistance, agricultural business development, meat and poultry processing technical assistance, supply chain development technical assistance. These are really 4 areas, but they're very broad areas. They're intended to capture your business needs from beginning, again, all through operations. On the federal funding side, we want to help provide you with funding information and eligibility requirements. One of the first things we do is really speak with you. We'll have a call, we'll have some emails back and forth possibly, but we want to understand your business. We want to understand what you do currently and what your goals are and where you want to expand, or maybe you're starting from scratch. We need to know all that so we can help connect you with the right programs that will fit you and your business. We want to assess the project viability, workshops and webinars on the application process. There are many, many, many resources that all of these organizations that I've mentioned already have put together. We want to connect you to those resources. And sometimes it's hard to find these things in a website or maybe find them online, but we have toolkits and resources that can help link you to these based on our communication back and forth of what you need. So again, that one-on-one exchange of information is very important for us to understand what you're trying to do so that we can connect you with the right assistance that you're looking for. We'll help recommend qualified experts that can help develop strong competitive proposals for USDA funding programs and general assistance in preparing overhead rates, budget justifications. So if you don't have consultants that can help put your projects together or maybe write your documents, we have a list and a toolkit of resources of groups, companies, individuals that have reached out to us and offered their services, and we can connect you with those folks. A lot of times those folks are for fee, but we have a lot of resources that are free. But when you get into writing grants and writing feasibility studies and things like that, sometimes you can get into actually having to hire somebody to write those more in-depth plans for you. Agricultural business development, the feasibility of your project, depending on the grant type and who is the administrator of the grant, they could have different feasibility requirements. And that's where you could get into feasibility studies, particularly with rural development. If you're doing, or if you have participated in the MPEP round 1, or if you're participating in the food processing loan guarantee program, you would have to have a feasibility study, or would have had to have had. But some of the other grant opportunities, such as the value-added producer grant or the MPERG grant, did not have a requirement for the feasibility studies. But we can also help you through, the planning, understanding what might be required for each one of these grants, and each one of these grants will have checklists as well that we can help get to you depending on which direction you're going. Business plan development, we can help connect you to resources, even through some of the small business development centers that exist nationwide. We highly recommend. Oh, I got a little fast there. We highly recommend linking you up with the Small Business Administration, small business development centers, some of the resources that your Washington Department of Agriculture has. Again, we're going to work with you to try to get you connected to the right people to get your business plans developed, understand business structures and different types, understanding sources and uses of funds and financial stacks. All of these different grant types that you're going to come across will have different finance criteria. They might be paying a percentage of your total project cost. They might be paying a lump sum and have a match requirement. They might, or if you're in a loan program, they might be covering a certain percent of your project, or maybe it's down payment assistance. We have to understand all of these different types of financing to help put your project together. But we want to help you understand also what the requirements of these are. And if you're in a federal loan program, maybe you're in a grant program, and then you're going to borrow money as well to create a finance stack to develop your project. We want to help you understand all of these processes and connect you with the right people that can assist you along the way. Scope 3, which is pretty in-depth as well. We can help assist with construction acquisition plans. We can do reviews. We can help guide you through the processes to help obtain these type of things, or know what to look for. If you don't have experience in dealing with even getting plans developed, we can help you with that as well. Again, lots of resources out there that we can connect you with if you're in this particular area. Equipment needs and costs. A lot of times we'll have conversations, or we might need to help understand what products you're going to make. If you're a brand new facility and new to meat processing, this could be your area where we have to sit down and talk through all the different types of products that you're going to make, and help understand what types of equipment you're going to need, what cost is related to, and even relating that back to square footage requirements in a construction plan. Workforce training, mentioned a few programs already, but NIFA has several workforce development training programs that are available now, and that we will highlight a little bit later in the webinar. These are primarily geared toward community colleges and technical schools, but you can create some partnerships and work with these schools if you have an existing plant or have an existing relationship with one of the colleges or tech schools to create a workforce development training program if there's not one in your area. These grants are coming up due here in the next few weeks. There were some extensions announced today. I did not get a chance to review those in depth, but there are about 7 different programs in open RFA right now through NIFA. Regulatory compliance. This is a big one that we get a lot of questions on. And again, if you're an AMP member, you get this support as well for you operating facilities. If you're not AMP members, we can help get you to people that can answer your questions. If you're having issues with even HACCP plans, developing HACCP plans, knowing what to put in those plans, we can get you to the right group. Troubleshooting, problem solving, really anything that you have an issue with, we can help connect you with somebody that can assist you. Next scope, source of animals, along with coordination of finishing, processing, materials purchasing, inventory management, product development, branding, and product distribution. These are all areas that we have people to assist with. Carcass utilization, retail food service, pet food. I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of these organizations that work with us, specialize in a lot of these areas, so we can connect you with all these people. Current funding opportunities and resources. The Meat and Poultry Processing Workforce Development Program. One of the due dates is September 22nd for a couple of these different programs. But again, this is a NIFA workforce development grant program. We can get you a link to that site, but I believe it'll pop up here. The Food Supply Chain Guarantee Program. This is an open program through rural development. You have to work with a lender that is working with USDA there are quite a few in the networks that do. So if you're interested in one of these loan programs and can't find a bank, let us know. We'll help connect you with one. Reduced overtime and holiday inspection costs for small and very small plants. If you have an existing facility, you've probably already heard of this, but there are some application periods where you can apply for these reduced overtime and holiday inspection costs because of the high demand in meat processing that was experienced through COVID. They implemented this program, and it seems to really help. We've heard a lot of positive feedback on that. Another important website we highly encourage everyone gov/meat, USDA.gov/meat. They keep this website up to date. I notice updates on it weekly. This shows you information about current programs. It also has some future programs that they are anticipating to open. And one of the things that you will notice on there is meat and poultry processing expansion program. They have changed the name of this. We had one time been calling it NPEP Round 2. We were anticipating that to be the name of that next program, but we have reason to believe that this might not be the case now. USDA has changed the terminology that's used on this website a little bit, but the dollars are still allocated. I believe there's $225 million allocated for future funding projects. These will be grants for meat and poultry processing. This would be one of the programs that was mentioned early on that we're expecting to open over the next month or two. And we don't have the guidelines on it yet. But if you would please sign up for technical assistance, we will automatically put you into our newsletter. You will get the updates as we get them. So as soon as we have the information on these new programs, we will do an email blast out to everybody. Or you can get on USDA's website and sign up for their email alerts automatically for various departments. You can click to sign up for all of these email alerts, or you can select the different entities that you get them from. And you want to make sure that you're getting updates from NIFA, Rural Development, Ag Marketing Service, Farm Service Agency, a lot of different organizations inside of USDA. Just know that if you click all, you will get email alerts from about 56 different USDA agencies. So that will be a lot of emails. So we always recommend, please sign up. We'll get you a email alert when these new programs come out. And again, the Washington Department of Agriculture, I know that you all have a robust training system. You have some people that are there to help you. Stay tuned for their website. I know they're doing announcements constantly as well as training programs. We want to make sure to get you connected to the programs that can help your business specifically. The federal funding technical assistance, writing a grant proposal, focusing on the funder's desired content, not what you think is important. And what we mean by this, when you're evaluating your grant, you have to understand what the grant goals are. If for instance, the MPEP program, that was focusing on the expansion of meat and poultry processing. If you were looking at a value added grant that was out this spring, that one was focused on value added products and expanding value added products, expanding the capacity to process value added products. So when you're looking at these grants, you have to really make sure you understand what the grant is trying to achieve. And you have to, one, make sure that you are proposing a project that is going to meet the needs of the grant, and not just your needs. We have to make sure those are matched up really well. Using language directly from the RFA, or request for application. The RFAs, we know, are cumbersome. Sometimes they can be hundreds of pages, but someone has to read those. If you're not a grant writer, you should probably even solicit to find a grant writer that can help you, or reach out for technical assistance and we can connect you with people that are experienced in writing these grants. And when you're responding to questions, you want to make sure that you are responding to the scoring criteria as well as the question that the RFA has stated. Just giving a generic write up from what you think you want them to know may not get you the score that you would hope it would. So please understand that when you have an independent reviewer reviewing these grants, they are specifically looking for answers to questions or specific criteria that was spelled out in a grant. So we want to help you get through that process as well. Start early. Lisa mentioned this earlier. Typically with these programs, it's a 30 to 90-day window. The meat processing grants that we've seen this year have been about 60 days. And that's what we're expecting to see on some of the future grant opportunities, is about a 60-day window. So some of the things that we want to make sure that you start early on, we'll cover on some of the next slides. Answer all of the application questions. Do not assume reviewers know about your organization. And you should also assume that they know nothing about your organization. Assume that they don't know where you're at. They don't know anything about your business. You need to tell them those things. Some of the grant reviewers could be across the country. You need to understand they're probably in another state or another part of the country. But they have independent reviewers reviewing these grants constantly. So just understand that and be sure to tell them what your business is and what you're doing and answer all the questions. Think long term. Can you sustain the project if grant funding ends? This is really about feasibility, and is your business feasible? You don't just want to get a building built with grant money and then not be able to operate it or not be able to be sustainable. You want to be concise and include all the relevant information in the body. Utilize your organization's strengths. I had this conversation earlier with another processor that was applying for a grant, and you want to really spell out what's unique to your business. What do you do that is important? What do you do that's unique to your region, to your community, even down to job creation? What jobs are you going to create? How much excess capacity do you have? What will this grant allow you to do if you were to get the funding? Make sure and spell out all of these things when you're writing your grant. Proofread, and then have someone else proofread it for you. And we have seen grants be thrown out because they did not contain all the forms that were required. We had one recently that we heard about that got thrown out because they used a 2021 document instead of a 2022 document. We've seen some thrown out because they didn't check all the boxes that were supposed to be checked. So some of the things that you might think are very simple and can get overlooked are very important in the review process. Sometimes we're so busy focusing on what we feel like are the harder parts or the more difficult parts that we might misstep on some of the easier things or some of the simple forms that need to be included. On the agricultural business development, how much will it cost to build? This is very important. And these are things that you can work on now. We mentioned earlier that there are things that you should be working on if you're thinking about a grant. Regardless of what grant it is, you need to think about what's on your wish list. What do you want your business to do? What do you need to make it happen? Will it take a new building? Will it take new equipment? Will it take more employees? Is the business feasible? You need to understand how much is it going to cost to build? How much is it going to cost to operate? Some folks, if you're diving into a brand new business and you don't understand the operational costs, we can help with that as well. If you have an existing a business, you know what your operating costs are each month. So this should be fairly easy for you all to understand how much more it's going to cost you when you expand or add new equipment, but also when you add more business. If you're going to increase your revenue, this will also allow you to keep these cost projections up to date. How many employees will it take? Again, if you're a new business or if you're an existing business, you want to make sure and think through this. This will all go into your operational cost calculation. And again, where will the funding come from? How can you make a finance stack? Can you use grant funds with loan funds with cash? And one thing that you all need to be aware of is some grants are not allowed to be stacked with other grants. We've seen some state programs, and I'm not specifically talking about Department of Ag in Washington, but in general, we've seen some state grants that cannot be stacked with federal grants. And those are kinds of questions that we need to ask when you're thinking about how to put your financing together and where can these different sources come from. If you receive a grant and it calls for a specific cash match, then that could mean just that. You're going to have X number of dollars in cash to match with that grant in order to get that grant. So those are things you're going to want to understand as you're applying, or maybe even before you apply for that grant. Where can we build it? Site selection, understanding what you're going to need on a site to build. If you're going to build a new meat processing facility, do you have enough power there? Do you have enough water? Are you able to deal with the wastewater, the sewage, the gray water, the offal, the blood? Can you take care of all these things on a particular site? We can help you think through these processes and understand what you should be looking for if you're not doing it already. And again, do we have the needed infrastructure available? Utilizing market data to support your project. Agricultural Marketing Service Market News. They have information to evaluate market conditions, identify trends, make purchasing decisions, monitor price patterns, evaluate transportation equipment needs, and accurately assess movement. And again, AMS provides data. In a lot of these cases, it's weekly data. You can understand what regional market costs are for products, especially if you're in meat processing. You can understand what meat is selling for each week and how much is moving by some of these market news information. The National Agricultural Statistics Service, NASS. NASS has a lot of resources, and it's broken down per state, per county, per city, various demographic information. If you're not familiar with the NASS data, you should really look that up for your area. You'll see some very interesting agricultural information, all the way down to the number of farmers in your area, demographics. Washington is full of agriculture, so I'm sure there's a lot of valuable information there for you all if you are in need of any kind of statistics. Economic Research Service, they cover a broad range of economic and policy topics. Ag economy, food and nutrition, food safety, global markets and trade, resources and environment, rural economy. Moving on into building a grant budget. Check minimum maximum award limits. We've talked a little bit about this. Does it require grant matching funds? And where can those funds come from? Does it have to be cash? Can it be in-kind matches? And an in-kind means the value of personnel, supplies, services, or indirect costs donated to a project. These are very, very important questions to look at even before you apply for a grant. Are there limits for indirect funds? Some grants allow you to charge indirect funds, even for administration or office or different things. Some of the grants that you're going to deal with probably do not allow this, but we would want to look at that with you for your specific case and your specific grant. Construction and equipment costs are not always allowed. One other thing I want to mention on that, and this question comes up a lot, but in a lot of cases, and not all, but I will say most cases, you are not allowed to use grant funds as a reimbursement. So if you've spent money on a project, say in February of this year, and you get a grant in September, um, most of the time they're not going to allow you to go back and pay yourself back for what you spent in February. So if you have a project that you've already started, we'll really have to look at the guidelines and requirements before we put your budget together, so that we understand what can be included and what cannot be included. Also, a guide to completing an SF 424C. Those are things that we can help you with. Again, this is one of the more typical forms that is required for most of the grants. If you need assistance, we can get you one-on-one assistance to walk through these documents. So please reach out. We also have a grant writing webinar that we'll be putting out here over the next 30 days or so. They do not have a firm date. We're working with USDA to get the best date selected for that. We're hoping to have some new programs that we can announce at that grant writing webinar. But again, if you sign up for our newsletter, we'll get you that training information as soon as it's available to us. Drafting a floor plan. This is a popular topic. We have several different models that we can pull from, but depending on what you do, there are a lot of generic models that are included in some USDA websites, in some of the college meat science program books that you might see. This is one that was pulled out of a university guidebook. It's very hard to pull from a generic plan and expect that to work for just any new facility. We don't usually share plans of existing facilities until we know exactly what you're trying to process or produce, and then we can start to share the various types of plans that might relate to you to help aid in developing a floor plan. You want to first consider all the different products that you're going to make in your facility. There are a lot of facilities that don't do any harvesting, so they're not going to kill any animals in that facility. They might only be added value. And on the flip side, there might be facilities that are only going to do harvest and packaging, and they're not going to do any added value. So it's very important for us to understand all of the different products, and whether you're dealing with our entity or ag marketing service assisted entities, or any other engineering firm, you're going to have to be able to lay out all the different products that you're going to make. You're going to have to be able to spell out all the different equipment that you're going to need in the facility, and how many people are going to work in the facility, the various types of packaging, labeling. Are you going to do institutional versus retail products? These require different types of equipment. We also encourage people not to overbuild. If you have a large building there that you're heating and cooling, and you're only using half of that facility, you're paying way too much for your operational costs. Food processing in general is a very slim margin business, and we have to be super careful that you're not overbuilding and causing yourself to have to pay more each month for operations than what you truly should be paying. Each piece of equipment you need to accomplish your goals will take up space. It will take up space. It will take power. It could take water. It could take internet connection. It could take air, and it will obviously take people to operate. So all of these functions need to be thought about and planned. And these will all go into your budgets, your floor plans, operational costs, everything. The more space needed, the higher your building costs will grow. This particular plan, as I mentioned, this came out of the guide to designing a small red meat plant from Iowa State University. We'll give them credit for that. But again, if you need a floor plan, please call us, reach out. We can help with that. We have a lot of different resources. There are some free resources out there. AMS has some that can help you develop. And it was even chatted earlier that we understand that some of these folks are getting really busy, just like the grant writers, feasibility study writers. the backlog of work for them is getting really long, and it could take several months to get products out of them. So reach out. We'll try to connect you with the resources to meet your goals and to meet the uh, requirements of the grant as well as the timelines for the grant. Here's a good case that we talked about. USDA wholesale markets and facility design. They provide assistance in site selection and layout, initial design concepts, architectural sketches, floor plans, elevations and sections, 3D renderings, and building square foot cost study and more. And again, to request assistance from them, Click Air, and it is noted that they do have they're starting to get more of a backlog. It could take a couple months to get information from them, but again, reach out. We'll try to get you the services you need and to meet the grant timelines.
Can I ask a clarifying question here, Chris? You might
Absolutely,
go back to the next
yes.
slide or the previous slide.
The
So,
previous slide? Okay,
yeah, given that
there you go.
the USDA wholesale markets and facility design team, that if you follow the click here link, you fill out a form and you request help designing, getting a floor plan design. Given that they're about 2 months out after you meet with them to be able to provide you that design, you indicated that you have access to maybe faster services. Is that true? Is that
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of different companies out there. Some are for fee. Some depends on the timeline we're working with. But yeah, we have access to plans. Some, if your facility or your goals match a plan we already have, obviously you can use that in your grant application. If it does not, we can work to connect you with a firm that can get you a floor plan in a timely manner. But again, please reach out. We can assist with the process. We can actually walk through a lot of the questions for free with you ourselves with our technical assistance providers to help determine the square footage you need, the equipment you need. We can help you work through the operational costs, construction costs, lots of things we can do within our technical assistance providers that we have signed up. So just reach out. We like to do one-on-one. We like to understand your business. We really want to know what you're doing, and then we can work with you to get you into the right programs. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great. The technical assistance, here's a link. Again, we mentioned a couple of the organizations that we work with. You can sign up direct on their website as well. MPAN has a sign up form as well as the Intertribal Ag Council, but we all work together. So we would ultimately end up probably in our system as well. You can sign up on flowerhill.institute/USDA MPP, right to the Flower Hill Institute website and do that. We are also linked on the USDA website. So if you click on one of the USDA technical assistance icons, it's going to link you to this website. So lots of different ways to get connected to us. We will review this request. It comes right to Shelby and I immediately. We physically review every one of them independently. You will get an email from us if we have other questions, or if we have enough information on the initial request, then we will assign that to a technical assistance provider so that you can get direct assistance from that provider. If at any time you don't feel you're getting the help you need, or if you need other assistance in another field, you can always email us back or submit another request, and we will get you reassigned to another TA provider. We have many TA providers across the United States that we can get you linked with. And I don't know of a situation that we haven't been able to get an answer for somebody. Even if we have to go back to USDA, we can get you an answer. Sometimes we have had it take us a week or two if we had to go back to USDA and request a clarification on a particular topic, but just know that we will work to get you an answer if we don't have it ourselves. Covered that. We will work with the technical assistance provider to accomplish all of your goals. We want to, again, understand your business. We also want you to fill out our surveys. That's not always the easy thing, but also check your spam folders. We have a lot of times, and you could be getting emails from USDA, maybe from the Washington Department of Agriculture, that your email system might be picking up as spam. So I highly encourage you all to check your spam folders at least weekly. There could be important information that you're missing. We don't want you to miss out on anything. Submit unlimited TA request. We haven't had anyone so far that has mistreated us or misused us or sent us too many requests. We want you to know that any question you have, we'll field it and take it and get it to the right people. The inquiry form for USDA meat and poultry technical assistance. They have a Flower Hill Institute online resource toolkit. We have the directory of resource consultants, and this particular resource consultant form here, we have a whole myriad of consultants listed here, but these are folks that can help with developing HACCP plans. We have grant writers on this list. We also have feasibility study writers on this list. And then the next line down is USDA.gov grant resource videos. A lot of these grant programs have webinars that they've been doing for them. So if you don't know where to find them, or if you're new to the grants process, again, reach out. We'll connect you with all these resources. You don't have to remember everything I'm saying. USDA services and database, a lot of good introductory information, a lot of good resources. But again, if you forget or can't find it, reach out. We will connect you. There's information on mobile slaughter units. We have various inquiries. Some folks are looking at mobile slaughter. We have folks that are looking at modular units, and as well as the brick and mortar units. So we have a lot of information on all three of those different types. MPEP round 1, frequently asked questions. Again, this particular grant is closed, and we do expect that the future grants will be different from this one. But if you do want to see some of the things that were in round 1, please feel free to click on these links and you can understand what was in round 1. But please know that we fully expect the future rounds to be different. We almost made that an hour presentation, but we are to the important questions. And do we have any questions that have came up in chat yet? Or does anyone have questions?
I think folks are eager to have that slide deck shared out. So
absolutely.
On that. That was great. Thank you so much, Chris. It was very informative.
You're welcome. It is a lot of information. We will definitely share the slide deck with you, and I know it's also recorded. So will you post this webinar on your website, Alyssa?
Yes, I will drop that link in the chat as well.
Wonderful.
And email folks as well. Anybody have any questions? That's a quiet group.
We might have put them all to sleep. Who knows? Let's hope not.
Would you mind just sharing, to the degree that you're willing to share, just sort of what we know and what we don't know about that upcoming grant, in terms of timeline, in terms of, you mentioned there's 225 million, anything else that you're able to share? Yeah,
we have, there's been a lot of wondering, I guess, and we're still wondering. We don't have a lot of information. Again, we do expect the guidelines to be different from MPEP round 1, but USDA has not shared what these new guidelines will be as of yet. Obviously, we're nearing the end of the fiscal year. The end of September here will be the end of fiscal year 22. So I know that USDA and all of the departments are trying to get the grant awards for the grants that have already closed. They're trying to get those awards announced by the end of fiscal year. So I would expect that the new programs would be announced once that's completed. But again, as soon as we know those guidelines and criteria, we're happy to have another webinar to go through that specifically once we understand fully what those are. But we just don't have a lot of information today on what will be included in these future rounds.
Really no questions out there? Oh, great. Thank you, Ben. Check this out, the link. Just that was a question about potential match requirements.
Yeah, each grant is different. NPEP round one, I can tell you that that one covered 20% of your total project cost. We do not expect that to be the same on future rounds, but again, we don't have any idea of what that will be on the future meat and poultry processing grant. Now, value added grant, we know that the value added grant has a couple of different criteria as well. We highly encourage a lot of the meat processing companies to follow the value added producer grant. This is a very popular grant that typically opens every year. It's a couple $100,000 for implementation of value added producer type projects. If you're adding new products, adding new lines, or expanding your customer base for value added products, these are great grant funds to pursue. Even if you're doing a planning grant, you could do a reduced amount for planning if you're not quite ready for implementation. So we really want to help understand your business so we can get you into the right programs.
I would echo that. The value added producer grant, which is administered by the Rural Business Development Program, they've got some great team members and offices across Washington state who are really eager to help businesses in Washington be successful with that application. So I would just, WSDA will definitely be sharing that information when that grant opens for the next year, but we're just, encourage folks to lean hard on the resources that we have available in Washington. I did want to ask one kind of question for clarification, just seeing a question in the chat. So the NPEP round one, that was really geared towards processors that were currently under USDA inspection or pursuing USDA inspection. Of course, we don't know what this next round will look like.
You're right. And there's also a CIS program, the Consolidated Interstate Shipment Program,
right,
that will
Washington
allow.
does not have.
Okay. So, the USDA inspection was critical for many of those other grant programs, and NPEP round one was specific to USDA inspection on that. So depending on the inspection type that you have or that you're seeking to have, we would have to make sure that you do qualify for each one of these particular grants.
Thank you.
Another thing I want to mention too is something for you all to follow is the Meat Processing Intermediary Lending Program. There are going to be some awards announced here very soon of lenders that will be getting funds from USDA to deploy into meat processing. So as these intermediary lenders get these funds, they are going to be looking to relend those funds out to meat processing entities. So we are seeing food systems lenders, CDFIs, nonprofits, private lending institutions that are getting some of these grant funds from USDA that are deploying them in food processing. And the meat processing intermediary lending program is specific to meat and poultry processing relending. So follow those dollars, look for those awards, see if there are groups in your area that are getting those funds to redeploy into meat and poultry processing. So watch where that money goes, and again, apply for that money when it comes out.
Great. Well, thank you for such a great presentation. Thank you for your timeliness, and I'm sure you're going to receive a lot of technical assistance inquiries.
Hopefully, please reach out. There's no question that we won't field, and no project we won't look at with you. So please reach out. We'll have a call if we need to, share emails, and we'll get you connected to the right TA provider.
Thanks so much for your time, Chris.
Hey, thank you all very much.